Good afternoon, everyone. We will now resume the presentation. I will share, and with Noemi will support so that we can move on to the additional member state concerned application. Noemi, floor to you.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Thank you very much, Anna. So we'll continue this talk with a presentation on the additional MSc application. So this is to say that maybe we can move to the next slide. That's very good. Thank you very much, Vicky. So just to complement what has already been said, I think in the previous talk about substantial modification, there are specific conditions as to when you can submit an additional MSc application. And this type of application can only be submitted once the initial clinical trial application has been authorized, at least by one member state concerned, and when all the member states have actually decided on the application. Okay, so, and obviously it says also that the sponsor can select a new MSc if they wish to extend the authorization to another member state in Europe. There's also a note there that it's about the withdrawal, and the sponsor can withdraw an additional MSc application and would provide a justification that's valid for any withdrawal that would happen in the system. And that can be done up until the decision. And again, that applies to any type of applications. Next slide, please. So this is a slide we presented to you before, and this was to recap on what are the conditions that will allow the sponsor to submit whilst there's an ongoing evaluation of an application. So here we will focus and concentrate on the last column that has been highlighted there. This is the submission of an application of an additional MSc. So what we've got at the top is we are about, as a sponsor, to submit an application for an additional MSc application. And what is happening in the system? We have ongoing activities. So let's see if there is an initial application that is currently being assessed. Can I, as a sponsor, submit such additional MSc application? No, I cannot. I need to wait until a decision issued by all MSc. Can I submit my application if there's an evaluation of a part 1 or part 2 substantial modification application? No, I cannot. I need to wait for all the MSCs to decide on the substantial modification before I can proceed to submit. Can I submit my additional MSc application if there is an evaluation of part 1 only substantial modification? No, I cannot. I need to wait for all the MSCs to decide on the substantial modification. Can I submit my application if there is an evaluation of a part 2 only substantial modification? Yes, I can. So obviously this substantial modification part 2 is only being concerned by one specific member state. And obviously I should be able to submit my additional MSc application. And now if there is another, let's say another additional MSc application that has already been submitted to CTIS for a distinct member state, can I submit another additional MSc application to another MSc? Yes, I can, obviously. And that is possible today. So next slide, please. So what needs to be populated when I prepare as a sponsor, when I prepare an additional MSc application? So what you can see on the screen here is are all the fields and the documents to be populated. We will concentrate on obviously showing this in a very similar structure that what we have in the left-hand side menu of an application, the form. In the form, obviously, you will need to provide the cover letter. You will need to provide a proof of payment in case that member state requires this in advance. This is not mandatory, and it really, really depends of what the member state will want. To come back on various queries that we did get on a proof of payment, this is really depending on the member state. I think at this point in time, member states are actually clarifying the topic, and a lot of them have already started to put information on their website. So please do refer to their website if you have a particular question on this document. Obviously, in the MSC section, you will have the ability to add one member state that has not yet received the application and that has not yet decided. In the part one, you will have the ability in the part one. In fact, we have to think part one is already been assessed. Part one is as is. It cannot modify, it cannot be changed. However, in part one, you may have the ability to, you will have the ability actually to provide translations, translation of structured data or translation of documents. So that's a nice way for you to be able to submit the information to the given member state with the document translated. And then in the part two, obviously, this is a classic part two. You will have to provide the trial sites and all the various documents that are required in this part two. Okay, so next slide, please. So the assessment phase of an additional MSc application. So let's take the stage that you've actually completed your application and now you've submitted it. What will the member state do with it? The member state concerned in particular will not have the ability to validate the part two because there is no workflow for this. It's a given that the application has been validated before, but obviously there was no validation of that part two in particular because it was not submitted at the time. So what we need to understand here is that because there is no such thing as a validation of the part two, you may receive during the validation of the part two, you may receive some questions asking you to further complement some documentations. It's quite possible. But in parallel, the member state concerned may well look at the part one information that you've already submitted within the initial application. And what they can do is actually raise considerations towards the part one. Those considerations will go to the member states, to the reporting member state, and the reporting member state will, if they see that it's required, raise an RFI on the part one. So do bear that in mind because it's always possible within an additional MSc application that particular MSc raise considerations towards the part one. So you do need to respond to the RFI in time, otherwise this particular application will lapse. So do bear that in mind now. And then obviously in the assessment part two, it's a classic assessment of the part two. There will be, the member state will prepare an assessment report related to the part two dossier, and then they can issue their conclusion to the part two. On the part one, it's only a matter of this MSc raising consideration to the RMS. The RMS taking the position that yes, indeed, an RFI is required, and for the sponsor to respond to the RFI. When the response to the RFI is then provided to the member states and to the RMS, eventually the other MSCs that have already taken part in the joint assessment of the part one. In such a case, there will be an assessment of the responses, but there is no new assessment report prepared. We need to think that this has already been done. It's just a matter of confirming the situation of the part one at this point in time. And then if the MSc is satisfied, then they will decide and they will make their decision based on their assessment of part one and the assessment of part two. And obviously the decision is, as we know, it can be authorized with condition or non-authorized. So this is the way the workflow would work for the evaluation of that particular application. So next slide, please. Okay, so now what I was going to do is to do a demonstration, Vicky. So I'll share my screen as soon as I can. You let me know when I can. Yeah.
Yes, I think you have the rights now.
Thank you.
So
Very good. So I've actually logged into the same environment as the one that Anna was in, the training environment today. I'm logged in as a sponsor. And what I will do is I will want to prepare what we call an additional MSc application in the system. So just to keep with time, Vicky, how long have I got for this particular demo?
You have 10 to 15 minutes maximum.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, can you see my screen, Vicky, correctly?
Yes, you're sharing, and if you can zoom in a little bit also, it'll be easier for the eyes of our viewers.
Sure. Absolutely right.
Much better.
Very good. So I'm currently logged in and in the training environment. I've selected a trial that has been authorized in Iceland. And what I will want to do is to create an additional MSC application. What I want to notice here is that this trial is already authorized. And what I do is I click on the create button and I navigate to the additional MSC application. And when it comes in, obviously, I just need to select the actual a country. I select Greece and I then go ahead with selecting this. And automatically the system then is drafting an application, which is an additional MSC application in Greece. And as you can see, I've got the same menu than the one that you must be quite familiar with now, the form and etc. So this is a country for the member state concerned is Greece. And what I notice here is that obviously the part one, I can navigate to the part one. The part one information that will be provided to me here is only allowing me to populate the translation information. So I could navigate to all the concertina that I've got there, but as you can see, I cannot modify anything. There's no way for me to edit, but at least I can see the information as a user and I'm quite comfortable with it. I can see that indeed this is the part one. And what I can then do now is to access the translation information in order to provide translation. So why is that? So in case, obviously, we need to understand that this trial will be made public. So I may have the wish to translate the title in Greek, to translate various structured data, and here it says the fields translation. So obviously what I will do here is that I can translate the public title, the full title, and I can add the translation by selecting the fields. As I can see, I've got a drop down here. I select the field, full title, and then I add my translation in Greek. But I will not pretend to speak Greek today, so I will just say a translation. Okay, and I will confirm, and then I can move on to other fields, medical conditions, public title, etc., endpoints, eligibility criteria. So that can be quite significant when we know that when the public website gets more and more of the trials that you will submit, this will become quite an important form of information to the public. So this translation of fields is quite useful for obviously for all of us Europeans. Okay, so then I will move on. I think the concept of the fields translation works for exactly the same for the rest of the other fields. And now obviously I can also provide document translation. So in this presentation here, I click on the actual lock, and I select the actual document that I wish to upload in a different language. So let's say that I've already got a protocol version in English here, and what I will want to do is to add a document, let's say a document in slightly different. I just need to select my document here, and I will need to open my document for a clinical protocol. And it's slowly working. We can see the bar at the top, yes. So once my document is uploaded, obviously, I know that this is the document that I've just uploaded, and I will want to say that this document is uploaded is a Greek version. I can certainly give the date of the document. If it's not today, it would have been, let's say I would have prepared it last week. Okay, and then I can say that this is version 1A, why not? Oh, and my language actually disappeared. So let's make sure that it keeps on the screen. Very good. So now I've uploaded I'm in the process of uploading my new document in Greek, and I just attach the document. And in fact, the process for uploading translation is going to work in a very similar way for all the document type. And I will just reopen the pop-up of the document type. So as you can see now, we've got the protocol alongside the clinical protocol in the Greek version. So that's the way it will then be presented on the GUI, on the user interface for the users. And then I could do exactly the same for any other document type that you can see in this drop down. And that's quite a neat way to say along the actual one already provided, I will upload my translation. So I will stop here to present because the mechanism is exactly the same for the rest. And then obviously within the um, classic part two, what I can do there is, as we know, I will need to, first of all, it's probably a good way to actually populate the information, just to start with the structured data to make sure that they're saved, and then you can then proceed with the upload of documents. So we'll say that, not sure if I could be able to add this one. No, probably not, obviously. But this one, yes, I can. So in this, as a trial site, I can only obviously append a trial site, an organization that has been recognized as a non-EU or non-regulatory body. I couldn't say that my trial site is obviously an EU institution. That wouldn't work at all. And this, when we certainly have some what we call validation rules on this within the system. And here I would just need to carry on providing the name of the investigator and any details that would be required to be completed. Oh, okay, and the phone number. Okay, so that's done for these sites. I can add as many sites as I need to, obviously. At this point in time, obviously, the sites needs to be in the OMS system at this point in time. And then I can proceed to upload all the documents. So again, I'm not going to demo that too much. I think we're quite used to this. I can do it in one go. I can select all. I can actually decide to do it in just upload all the document in bulk, let's say, which is the nice functionality at the bottom that you've got here, or I can select to do it per Constantina. It's really up to you, but the system offers different types of functionality there. So you've got the insurance, and I would then call in the insurance documents type, document type, which appears here, proof of insurance, and then obviously I can change the actual language. I can change the date of the document, and the version here is obviously the version of your document. We need to have the version number, the system version. It's very important. It allows to the traceability as well as the organization of the document, and this system version is important for all of us to see, really. Then we've got the investigator suitability in case you needed to submit it, and I can carry on in Greek, etc. Okay, so that's the way it would be done in the system. So let me just finalize this in order to carry on. I apologize because initially I probably didn't select the right the right document for my list, but it's just for the purpose of the demonstration, really. Huh? So we've got the subject, we've got the investigator CVs. I don't think I need this one, so I'll remove it. And I think I need the suitability of the facilities. So I think we should be good to go after that. Let's have a look. And what I've done in this particular example is only to upload document for publication. Let's make sure that it's actually correct and see whether I'm not quite done. I've not done the form as well. So let's have a look at which document I've not. So I've got the ICF. So the ICF has been uploaded. So very good. And the financial arrangement is probably missing. Let's have a look. No, there was an arrangement there for the document. So let's see whether, let me save now. So we have to remember that this is a training environment. I may have some slight issues and may not always be able to demonstrate everything as it should be to yourself. But as we can see now, it seems like my part 2 is complete. I don't have any red information here telling me that I'm missing some of the mandatory documents. And here, obviously, as I presented to you in the presentation, I do need to upload a cover letter, which I'm about to do now. And as we see, obviously, if the documentation is already prepared, if you have all your metadata also known, as whether this is the Greek language, the date, etc. I think, as we can see, the key is really the preparation of your documentation outside of the system. That would really help you to streamline the upload of anything to the system. So I think we are not needed to upload a proof of payment. It's not necessary. The document in relation to the regulation here was already provided the first time when I did my initial application. So I don't need necessarily to do anything here. So I will leave it as is. Okay, so it's a nice application now that I should be able to submit. My application is valid. That's what it says at the top. And now I can actually physically, not quite, because I've got some section that have been locked by myself and I've not unlocked myself. So it will require me doing it before I can actually submit. Okay, but I think I don't necessarily need to demonstrate the locking and the submission necessarily, but let's see whether we have time. It would be nice to be able to do that, Vicky, I think. I know we're a bit pushed with time today.
Yes. I don't know if you want to do it. We can end a couple of minutes later, if our
Yes,
viewers are okay with that.
I think I would like to do it just to
All right.
finish it nicely, because this way we can see that it's indeed.
Okay, then go ahead.
Okay, so I think I've actually unlock trial details and product is locked. Oh, okay. So I must have done something which is surprising. Let's have a look. So I'm afraid I can't see why I can't submit in this particular case. So I will not. I may need to log out and log again. Don't know. So again, as I was commenting, this is the training environment. It's sometimes depending on some of the third-party system that we're dealing with, and it may not always work as expected. We always hope, obviously, when we do a demonstration. So let me go back to the trial and see whether we can actually do it now. And maybe in the meantime, if there's any question you could read out, potentially, Vicky, we could maybe have a...
Sure. It's a mix of the two topics, so I will pick up one. For a multinational clinical trial, please clarify if we can add an additional member state as soon as we received the authorization decision from one of the member states concerned. Or do we have to wait the approval from all member states concerned before submitting the additional member state?
Yes, I think this is what I was presenting in the slides. Actually, I was saying that we need to wait for all the member states, not just one. We need to wait for all the member states to have decided. So for sure, one of the member states needs to have said yes, authorized, and then we need to have all the others that needs to have submitted their decision to be able to submit the application. Obviously, why authorized? Because if none of the member states, and including the RMS, has decided not to authorize the trial, you're not going to be able to do an additional MSC application to another country, because that doesn't make sense. None of the others wanted it. So that in such a case, that would not be possible to submit it even. But then you need to have at least one member state that has authorized, and you need to have all the others that have actually decided, whether it's positively or negatively. And in the meantime, I was then able to complete my additional MSc application. As you can see, I want to submit, and I've got this confirmation pop-up that comes in, and I'm basically going to confirm the part 2 to Greece. Today, we can see that it's a draft, and now if I confirm, this application will become under evaluation, and then it will be good for the member states to then assess. So let's go and have a look. So now I've got this application. This is currently under evaluation, as we can see here. Okay, so thank you very much, Vicky. That concludes the presentation or the demonstration on the additional MSc application.
All right, thank you, Noemi. I will now present the questions. And as I have said, I will ask our viewers to bear with us for a few extra minutes. Okay, here are the questions. This is the one you just answered. So I think we can highlight this one. According to EU CTR Q&A C 108 answer or 10.8, there is no validation period foreseen for additional member state concerned in the regulation. Does it mean we don't get a validation notification either?
Correct. It's not foreseen by the clinical trial regulation. It's not foreseen by CTIS. There is no validation period. Therefore, you are not getting a notification to say that your additional MSc application is indeed valid. You will not get that at all. But as I was saying, you could still have questions back from the member state asking you to uh, further complete some of the documents because they didn't think they were in a good position to actually continue the assessment. We could take a very simple example of the consent form that is supposed to be, I don't know, 4 pages, and only 1 page has been submitted because there was an error. So these kind of things you could get an RFI very quickly at the start of the assessment in case there is a need to complete the application with further documentation.
Thank you. The next most popular questions are on transitional trials. So since we're at the end of the session, we can take both, if you agree.
Certainly, yeah.
Okay, so after transition is approved after EU CTR with the first substantial modification, Is it expected to complete all Part 1 and 2 documents that were not provided for transition phase, or just the documented impacted by the documents impacted by the modification?
I think Anna, you're trying to respond. We can see you nicely moving your lips. So I
Sorry,
think
I'm
you were
connecting
muted.
now. I think you need to provide. So you submit a substantial modification, is your opportunity to align the dossier with the requirements of Annex 1 of the regulation, but at the same time, is the opportunity for you to indicate other changes. As you know, when you submit a substantial modification, you will need to provide what are the list of changes that you have introduced, and also normally there is a highlight functionality to indicate to the member state where the changes have been introduced. So you can do both, let's say. There's nothing that prevents to do that.
Right, thank you. Next question. Sorry, Q&A is not clear. We need to know if any Part 2 documents other than ICF need to be updated during the next SM, even if not affected by SM. For example, Part 2 SM to on-site, upload all other sites. To one site, upload all other sites.
I have to understand better this question. Anyone? Well, eh, again, eh, the part two probably is the area that there are more misalignment with the CTR. So the expectation is when you submit the modification, then you upload all these documents that now are required under the umbrella of the clinical trial regulation. Uh, so in the initial application, probably you uploaded a blank document because it was not applicable, and you indicated this is a blank document, this was not required under the directive. But then when you submit the substantial modification, you are expected to provide all the documents are required in Annex 1 of the regulation. So I'm not understand very well this specific example, part to substantial modification to on-site. I'm not sure what exactly means. Sorry for that. I'm not sure if Noemi, if you understand better than me,
Mm.
perhaps you can help on that.
No, I think you gave a good answer, Anna.
Okay, thank you both. Could we update stability data in the quality IMPD when doing the transition into CTIS?
Again, as indicated, the expectation is to have in the latest authorized version. So if there has an update in stability data, then submit it as a substantial modification or as required under in the context of the clinical trial directive to the member state, and then you transition your trial. Don't try to introduce changes that have not already been authorized in the context of the clinical trial directive. You
Thank you.
transition your trial with the latest authorized in the context of the clinical trial directive, and then later you introduce the changes, or you do it, if you are aware in advance, first in the context of the clinical trial directive, and then you transition your trial. That should be the best practice.
Excellent, thank you. Under the VHP, there was a restriction for addition of new member state at an ongoing clinical trial application after a VHP, which was that a number of additional member states must not exceed the number of member states in the initial VHP. Is there any similar rule under EU CTR?
No, absolutely not. The clinical trial regulation is not giving any restrictions on how many additional MSC application you can have after the initial clinical trial application was indeed authorized in the member state. So I think this rule was under the VHP now. I think we've evolved. This is the clinical trial regulation that has been able to be prepared with all the knowledge and experience from the BHP. And if it's not in the regulation, it's because member states are very happy to proceed as is, as per the clinical trial regulation.
Thank you. Continued with after transition, we understand that the requirements to report study results will follow CTR. However, as study started under CTD, it will also be present in Udacity. Should results also be posted there?
No, you have to post them in CTIS. If you transition your trial under the clinical trial regulation, then you should follow the rules of the clinical trial regulation.
Thank you, Anna. Next one, with staggered initial submission. Does that mean you cannot add a new member state if you have part 2 initial member states not submitted evaluated?
Correct. You have to wait for you have to basically populate or submit the part 2 of the member state that have indeed assessed the part 1. And for all the member states in the initial application, all the ones that were involved in the joint assessment of the part 1, to issue a decision. In order for them to issue this decision, you need to provide the part 2s, you need to complement the initial application. Once that's done, you can submit an additional MSc application. This is per the current rule.
Thank you. We have time for a couple more questions, so we will focus on the ones on today's topics. I would suggest this one. For a transition dossier, do all applicable documents for Part 1 and Part 2 need to be included? Uh, or only documents for Part 1 and certain for Part 2?
Yes, you have to, as I explained, you need to enter complete the application with all the mandatory structured data and documents that are required in the different section of the application, the form, member state, part 1, part 2. So, so that's what, and as I explained, if, for example, in part 2, a document is not applicable under the directive, then you upload a blank document and then you indicate here this is a blank document because this document was not required in the context of the clinical trial directive. But you have to complete this mandatory structured data and documents like for any other applications submitted in the context of the clinical trial regulation. There is no difference. The only difference is that, as I said, some documents were not applicable in the clinical trial directive. So then you will upload this blank document in that placeholder and you will indicate that that document was not applicable to inform the member states. And then, as I explained, at the first opportunity in the context of a substantial modification or additional member state, you have to align the dossier with the requirements of Annex 1 of the clinical trial regulation.
All right, thank you. Unfortunately, time is chasing us, so we will pause the questions here. We'll stop the questions here. And if you won't have more questions, you can always, always, always go to the walk-in clinics. I will remind you about this event in a minute. So now I want to share for the last time the presentation. And okay, full screen, perfect. So thank you again, Noemi and Anna, for this participation in this talk, and also thank you all for your kind attendance on this talk on these two very interesting topics. As always, your questions that you submitted today in Slido will be used as input to EMA training and support materials. Now, please keep your Slido station open. I would like to ask you to participate in a short poll to provide us with your satisfaction feedback for this bite-sized talk, as well as with your suggestions for future talks. The poll has been opened and will remain open for a few uh, for a couple of hours. And all of your opinions are valuable to us and are taken into consideration when designing upcoming session. So, also the presentation that we used in this talk will be published on the event page within the next few days. And the recording of this session will become available as usual on the EMA website within 60 days as per our multimedia policy. We recommend, as always, our attendees to sign up to the Clinical Trials newsletter for information on when the videos are published and on upcoming events. And for some reason, bear with me as I present to you two upcoming events. So, we will have our next bite-sized talk on July 20th, and it will be on deferral rules and public websites. However, in the meantime, EMA has planned these two events on the end of this month, on the 30th of June. Starting actually on the 30th of June, EMA is offering a dedicated monthly support sessions to address issues and questions related to registering organization and location data in OMS for use in CTIS clinical trial applications. We had a question today on OMS and clinical trial sites, so this is your opportunity to start asking questions on that. So please note that questions related to OMS issues will be collected via Slido until 1 week prior to the day of the session. For the first session, this is today. Until today, you can submit Slido questions. More dates of these OMS sessions, troubleshooting sessions for CTIS users will be announced throughout 2022. Also, the first day of July, EMA will hold an open webinar titled 6 Months of CTIS and Looking Forward. Topics that will be presented during the webinar include system usage metrics, member state and sponsor experience and reflections, user support feedback, and training environment. Again, questions will be collected via Slido prior to the webinar until tomorrow, June 24th. Both events will be live broadcast and the video recording will be available later on the respective event pages. Please remember that all upcoming events hosted by EMA on CTIS can be found on the EMA website in the CTIS training and support page. Okay, thank you for bearing with us. And now with all that being said, our event has come to an end. All of us in EMA hope that you have enjoyed the CTI's bite-sized talk. Please show it, express your satisfaction in the Slido poll, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you very much for your participation, and I wish you all a lovely evening.